Hello, everyone. It's Claire. Welcome to another astrology forecast. It is time to talk about August, and I am getting in at kind of the last minute. It's Thursday, July 31st at 10:30 in the morning, my time. Also very early. Usually I don't do this quite this early. Um, but yeah, logistics. This is like the only time I can really get it in. It's been a busy few weeks. So I apologize for the delay, but here we are. So I'm gonna do my usual talking about old business. So we're gonna reflect a little bit about July, see where we're coming in at this point today. And then we're gonna get into, I've got my little list of dates, and then we'll jump into the details for August. I don't have any announcements. Everything is moving along swimmingly as it usually does. I'm seeing clients. I'm a consulting astrologer full time, all the time. So, if you'd like to have a reading with me, I have a website, www.aligninglightastrology.com. And then that's also, I do monthly horoscopes. I don't always do rising sign horoscopes, but sometimes I just do a little piece of writing. You can find all of that on my website. I do this once a month. I do a once monthly question and answer time for astrology students, myself included. And that's the second Thursday of every month at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern. That's my usual stuff. So check it out there. Oh, and I do have a sliding scale. If anyone is looking at my services, would like to schedule a reading, but is having a hard time making that for financial reasons, or if you meet my other sliding scale criteria, many people apply. You can send me an email and we can set that up. You can find that on my FAQ section. I have a very long, very full FAQ section on my website. Uh, if you're here live, there is a chat the right-hand side of your screen. You should be able to chat with anyone else who's here. And if you have any questions for me, that's partly why I do this live, is because I like to be able to answer questions that people might have on the spot, or if there's like a date, because I'll skip over some dates. I'm not going to do every single day of August. And if there's anything you want me to look at, let me know. Otherwise, let's pull up my notes. Let's get into it. Good morning, Kai. Hello. Good to see you as always. Hello, Tapestry. Welcome. Yeah. If you got anything going on this month you want me to focus on date-wise, just let me know. It is kind of an interesting month. It's probably one of the more interesting months of the year, the second half of the year. The first half of 2025 was that whole thing that we all remember. The first half of this year is kind of astrologically difficult. The second half of 2025 is not as difficult. In general, the second half of 2025, I personally prefer better. But August has one of the better, more favorable type moments in the sky, more mid-August. And it also has one of the more difficult notes of 2020, the second half of 2025. So that's the first week of August. So if I could just do August in a nutshell, Mercury gets better the second half of the month. The first part of August starts out tough. The middle of August smooths out. There's a lot of benefic and malefic enclosures of the moon. There's a lot of up and down this month, but overall, the first part's the toughest. So if we can just get our buns to August 9th, then we're going to have a full moon. That'll be a thing. We'll talk about that. And then we'll get to our nice, juicy Cancer, Venus, Jupiter conjunction that everyone's looking forward to. So those are the big notes. What else? So let me just run through some old Mercury dates because we're kind of coming into this month in the middle of a Mercury story. So that began, the pre-retrograde Mercury time started on June 30th. And then on July 17th, Mercury stationed retrograde. So that was a couple weeks ago about. On the 11th, Mercury is going to station direct. And on the 26th, Mercury is going to leave their post retrograde time. Today, as I record this on the 31st, I did forget to mention, we have a cazimi. So the middle part of that story, today on July 31st. And it doesn't always work out like this, but this time, just as Mercury's stationing direct on the 11th of August, that's about the same time when Mercury is going to make their appearance in the sky after being hidden by, under the beams, being too close to the sun. So they're going to make their appearance at about the same time as they station direct. So the 11th of August is very important Mercury wise. And I did actually write, if you want to learn a little bit more, in terms of your own rising sign about that Venus Jupiter conjunction in Cancer mid-month, I did write a little blurb about that and I threw some rising sign information in there. So I just put it in the chat, but I'll link it below later. But yeah, I go by rising sign and I basically say, here's where the good stuff is. Where's Cancer in your chart? What life house topics, what life topics are described by Cancer for you? That's where in August you can expect some of the more positive, favorable notes. So check that out on my website. Last thing, and I guess maybe this is the time to get the wheel up. So we've been dealing with this Mars South Node conjunction, which has not been very fun, in my opinion. It's been kind of low energy, very eepy. I've been so sleepy for like most of July. And I kind of, I don't remember if I even talked about this last month. I hope I did. I don't remember if I did. So I apologize if I missed this in my July forecast. But this was very prominent. I noticed the Mars South Node conjunction very much. Low motivation, low energy, just not a lot of fuel in the tank. And interestingly, especially with like Mars ruled areas of life. So, my third house of brothers is ruled by Mars. And I was trying to get a hold of my brothers and I couldn't get a hold of them. Because they're busy. They're going through a bunch of work stuff right now. So yeah, that made sense. A temporary disappearance with the South Node for me around my siblings. And then for me, it's also my career. And I have had a heck of a time having motivation to get stuff done, but it has been getting better. I've been noticing it getting better day by day the further Mars gets away from that South Node. So, as much as Mars is moving into some stuff, you know, Mars has to go through this opposition with Saturn, which we will discuss. That's that difficult thing about the first week of August. Um, that being said, I am happy to have Mars away from the South Node. So I'll take it. I think that's it for old business. I guess, today, maybe just looking at today as I record this, I was just cursing myself earlier for how early this was for me, which is kind of funny because I mean, I used to wake up so early and just do so many things when I worked outside of the home. And people do that. So many people are out there working, being parents so early. Um, but yeah, 10:30 is earlier for me. But the reason partly why I chose this time was that the astrology was good. And I don't love Saturn over in the seventh when I'm doing stuff, but they're getting cadent. It's fine. But we're having this Mercury cazimi, and I thought that might be a nice little loophole to kind of thread the needle and do a mercurial thing, like try to orate online. Uh, this might be a good little window, but this is going on today. So for anyone who's listening to this right now, listening to this today, Mercury cazimi, Mercury conjunct the sun is often a time of clarity, a time of having realizations, things clicking together, at least in the mind, and especially around. And now this is where it's also helpful to know your rising sign. If you can look at your Mercury ruled places. So for this theoretical Libra rising, this would be maybe clarity too around ninth and 12th house topics. So just throwing that out there. Whoever you are out there, if you're looking for some info or answers, not that we're going to just get answers dropped in our lap today, but it can be more of a day of clarity. So good luck with that. I usually enjoy days like that. And it can be like the smallest stuff. Like I'll figure something out about my technology or, like the example I had, it was like 3 or 4 days ago. I figured out why I was spilling so much when I was pouring water into my coffee machine. It can be just clarity around the silliest little things, but it can be clarity around bigger things too. So, yeah, that's all my old business. Let me rattle off my list of dates. So, dates of interest for August 2025. On the 6th, we have Mars entering Libra. On the 8th of August, Mars and Saturn's opposition perfects. On the 9th of August, we have an Aquarius full moon. On the 11th, Mercury stations direct and approximately rises in the morning sky. On the 12th, we have that Venus-Jupiter conjunction perfecting. On the 22nd, the sun enters Virgo. On the 23rd, we have a Virgo new moon. On the 25th, we've got a Venus entering into Leo. And on the 26th, Mercury is going to leave their post-retrograde shadow. So those are the things for the month. Let's take a look at, as we enter into the month, we finally have Venus in Cancer. But we do have to get them past this square with Neptune, Saturn. So that's going to take a moment. So, it'll be nice. And they are going to be benefiting from Jupiter's exaltation. They're going to be better resourced in a lot of ways than they were in Gemini. But I think we won't be able to lean into that full Cancer comfort maybe until a few days into August. And even then, we know there's some other difficult weather going on in the sky. And so, while, yeah, very different favorabilities, we've got really favorable things in Cancer happening at the same time that we've got difficult things happening across Aries and Libra. So all in the same sky, all at the same time. So there might be some areas of life where things are going fine, and other areas of life where there's a bit more challenge or tension. But, again, even though we've got Venus and Cancer with Jupiter, it's like we're not out of the woods yet with Venus. And to really be able to lean into and enjoy Venus here, I'm going to be looking more toward the pretty much the middle of August to really lean into that. So sorry to make people kind of have to pump their brakes a bit on getting excited and hyped up about that ingress. The moon's doing some stuff at the beginning of the month that's not that interesting. They're moving through Scorpio, they're moving through Sag. The first thing that really popped up for me was on the 5th. On the 5th of August. So it's about the time when Mars is getting ready to change signs. So we've got Mars at 29 degrees of Virgo. It's an out of sign, but by degree aspect. So the opposition isn't sign based, but I guarantee we're going to be feeling it even before the 6th when Mars gets into Libra. We're going to be feeling the tension of this increase. But on the 5th, even before that happens, even before Mars enters into Libra, we're going to have the moon. Oh, we're going to have the moon plugging into all of this. So as soon as the moon gets into Capricorn on the 5th, we're going to start to get a little bit of this. So I don't think we even have to wait until the 6th to start to really kick off this opposition and its height of intensity. And then as we move forward by the day, we can see, all right, now the moon has moved a bit away from that exact T square. Now we get Mars really locking into everything. Moon is still in a cardinal sign, feeling it very much on the 7th. And then what's interesting is there's a little bit of shift in this, even as this is still perfecting the Mars-Saturn opposition. On the 8th, now we've got a moon, still a Saturn-ruled moon, so still very intimately connected with this configuration, but now it's in a softer aspect. So I'm thinking that even though like the peak of the conjunction or the opposition is on the 8th, and clearly that's going to be the most intense part of it. I don't know, the moon's going to be plugging into it in a really intense way a few days before. So if we just kind of want to all be taking extra good care of ourselves and each other, that, really the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and then on the 9th it breaks. And we're going to start to have that dust settle and move on to the next thing. But practical advice, if people are being crabby, if people are being kind of wild the first week of August, love them from afar, let them be crabby from afar. If you're feeling tension about anything, you know, know that it's not going to be forever. Get yourself through the week. I'm kind of telling myself, telling other people, telling my clients, like, get your meal prep done, do your laundry, do the things that you need to do so that by the time we get here, whatever else is going on, at least you won't have to deal with some other things. So, interestingly for me, I've already figured out what this is going to be for me. It's like it was like opening a Christmas present I didn't want. I figured out what this was going to be. So for me, I'm an Aquarius rising, and I've got this across my third and my ninth house. So this is happening for me across a place of education, learning, teaching, communication, academia. And I was made aware of there was this program I was in pharmacy school about global health and global health initiatives, a little bit more epidemiology flavored kind of stuff, community health type of topics. Anyway, there's a reunion. I didn't know about it. A really good friend of mine, a good old friend, contacted me, said, "Hey, are you going to this? I'm going to this, and I want to see her. So I'm going to it to see her." But I'm also going to be walking into a room full of pharmacists and academics who I have been avoiding actively for about 4 years because I don't want to answer questions about what I'm doing now. And I have to be, I'm gonna these planets that are not dignified. They're not given their space points. They're not supported. Feeling out of their element, feeling out of their comfort zone, and I will absolutely be Saturn outside of my comfort zone. And every time I talk about this, people are like, It'll be fine. Don't worry about it." But like I've been through these before. I've done this many times already, and it is such a lottery. Like you're in a room full of people like this, like sciencey people, and uh, and not just sciencey people. Like I come from a very positivist, materialist space, which in English means like you really don't believe anything unless you've been given evidence for it. So it's a very kind of rigid, orthodox worldview that I do not have anymore. But you're going to get one of two responses from people like that. Some of them are pretty soft and they're open and they'll surprise me and they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, I know my sun sign." And I'll be like, "Oh my gosh, you're the best. Thank you for not rejecting me." But the other half of people, you say you're an astrologer and it looks like you grew horns out of your head in like 2 seconds. And it's, people who maybe have known you for a long time and had a good rapport, and then all of a sudden they don't. So this has also happened. I'm walking into this. This is what my tension thing is going to be. But at the same time, it's at a wine tasting and there's going to be yum yums. So I'm going to be, taking my Zofran so I don't throw up. And I'm going to be enjoying some very tasty things, hopefully, and having a good time with people who I've done a lot of service work with. So there's good things, there's challenging things. That's what mine is. So it doesn't have to be catastrophic, but just to give you an idea, I've been talking to a lot of people and it's like they've got big meetings during these weeks, big things happening at work or in their personal life they're just kind of converging and coming together. So there's a lot of busyness around this time. So it could just be that. And, there's frustrations. Mars is trying to do stuff and Saturn is slowing it down, putting up obstacles, saying no. So that's where some of that frustration could come from. I don't think it's going to be the worst picture overall because we do have two benefics, really adding a lot of stabilization. I think that's what I have to say about that. So, really interesting, though, too, that the whole time that this Mars Saturn thing is applying, the moon is in Saturn ruled signs for 5 days, 6 days, 2.5 times 2, that's six. No, that's five. So, we're going to have this very Saturn influenced moon that's plugging right into this whole thing. I do think that that Aquarius moon will be a bit softer and make a difference. For what it's worth, it's a mitigation. I'm putting it in the mitigation pile. There is on the 5th a lunar malefic enclosure from 3:30 p.m. Universal Time until 8 p.m. Universal Time. So in the evening, in Central Time, over in the Western time zones, that's more the morning and afternoon of the 5th. Not a good time, or doing difficult things that are uncomfortable. And for the more global Eastern time zones on the 5th, that difficult time is more into the evening. On the 6th, we have Mars entering Libra. So now Mars is still going to be, you know, ruled by a planet that can see them. Well, not still. They're now going to be in a place where the planet that rules them can see them. So that's helpful. Even though they're not in a place they'd like to be, at least Venus can see and give some help. Jupiter can see and give them some help. But yeah, this is not super comfortable. Mars would like to move forward, be very direct. In Libra, they're asked to consider things, think more, wait. Yeah, do the thoughtful, rational thing instead of just the purely action-oriented thing, which can be a little frustrating for Mars. There can be very cool things that come out of this, fighting for something intellectual, or fighting for something ethical. I think a lot of people talk about Libra in terms of ethics, morals, the scales of justice. That's very true. Venus, ruler of this place, warrior goddess at times. But I have seen a lot of examples of Libra placements where people have their own ideas. It's kind of like, what's ethical to you? Because what's ethical to one person is not ethical to other people. There was some like internet mom that got charged with like abusing their kids or something. It was like very online. And they had a bunch of Libra placements, like a Libra, Saturn Libra, strong Saturn in Libra. Can't remember if it was a night chart or not. But not great. I'm doing things I don't think are ethical. So I don't think we can just assume because something is happening in Libra that it's like not harmful, but we're definitely in the realm of ethics, morals. Like there's a right or a wrong way to do something. Like very much we get that algorithmic, kind of if this, then that. Um, very like there's a right and a wrong way to do things. In Virgo, in Libra, it's now applied to people and peopling situations. So Mars is in there. They're going to be wrestling with some of those things. So if even internally, wrestling with thoughts or ideas, that kind of devil's advocate thing happening inside and outside, that's very Mars and Libra. Working really hard, putting a lot of effort into beauty, putting a lot of effort into making things look harmonious or feel harmonious or be harmonious. When I'm thinking about looking harmonious, I'm thinking about like pictures on a wall that jive together really well, like that. Yeah, like that. Putting a lot of effort into that. That would be very Mars and Libra. So yeah, I can do cool things. I can do not so cool things. I think we'll be able to see a bit more of just Mars and Libra more after the 9th, after Mars gets away from Saturn. I do think the 5th is a mind your own business day. Um, the 6th, we have a benefic lunar enclosure. So it's not the best day on the 6th. It's in this chunk of days that I don't love. But there is a benefic lunar enclosure on the 6th, and that is from 6:30 a.m. Universal Time to 5:30 p.m. Universal Time. Global Western time zones, that's going to be in the wee hours, really in the morning. So a nice morning for Central Time, Global West, a nicer afternoon, evening for universal time and a nicer evening on the 6th if you're more globally Eastern time zones. On the 7th, we have anything interesting? So at this point, kind of getting away from the moon, let's look at Mercury for a second because they're going to be now coming into a sextile with Mars. And this is going to be in play for a lot of August. So Mercury, Mars sextile going to be really strong until about August 23rd. And that's really great for cognition, mental heavy lifting, having to work through problems, problem solving, being a smarty pants. Uh, Very good at just using your brain for planning, communicating in a very effective way. Now, it can be sharp words or, things getting too prickly or spicy with words, but it's a sextile, so I'm not really that worried about that. I think this is just going to be more helpful in getting through things and getting things done intellectually over the course of August. So that's going on. Yeah, and I think I've pretty much exhausted what I can say about this Mars-Saturn opposition. That wraps up on the 9th, and then we have a full moon. So let's look at this full moon. It's ruled by Saturn, uh, so it's not going to be the most comfortable. So this full moon really taps into everything that we had just experienced the first week of August. Again, I love that it's in a soft aspect though, like that sextile trine relationship. That helps. That's a mitigator. That makes it less, it could be even worse. But I don't love this full moon. It's seen by both malefics. It's not being witnessed by benefics. So there's not a lot of softening happening here. Usually full moons are culminations, fruitings, peakings of activity, especially peakings of activity that's been going on for the last couple weeks. The coming to completion of something that's been moving toward the last 2 weeks. And then the carry through of that and the kind of cookies crumbling from that for the following 2 weeks. So you can look in your chart, especially the Aquarius parts, to see what's being illuminated, what things might be more vivid or understood around August 9th. The aspects after this, the moon is going to end up being in a sextile with Chiron, and then they're going to square Uranus. And then after they get out of the beams of the sun, after the moon gets away from the sun a little bit, then they're going to be in a trine with Venus. So there is a bit of the moon itself is not comfortable. It's not a comfortable full moon, but after it, if we look at like the following day, the moon is going to feel a lot better and it's going to start interacting with the benefics again and have this really nice mutual reception. So let's just get ourselves through this first week, get ourselves through this full moon, see what that's about, be curious about what that's going to all be and what that'll all say. And then I think the 10th, 11th, be able to lean into something a little bit different. The 9th of August, I guess I'm talking about this Mars Saturn opposition, like it'll be done on the 9th. The further globally east you go, they still have to deal with it on the 9th though. So more the 10th and 11th, I think we can expect for sure for the whole world to feel a bit better. Then we're going to have Mercury stationing on the 11th. Mercury coming out of the beams in the morning sky on the 11th. So very interesting period of time. Now, It's not that all the news comes in or all the info is more easily brought to us once Mercury is out of the beams, but increasingly, like now they're visible. So the chances of information and news coming to us with more ease is much better and will continue to be much better for the rest of for the rest of August. So if you're waiting to hear about something, waiting for news, waiting for information or understanding, we might have to wait till Mercury gets out of the beams on the 11th. If we've been waiting to say something, waiting to, you know, do some kind of communication or buying or selling, that also might happen more after the 11th. So it might find that the first part of August, it might be harder to do your buying and selling, or there's more returns or snafus. That kind of stuff might be a little bit better at the second half of the month. I don't know how important this is, but we're having this very prolonged, I mean, this is a sextile between Uranus and Saturn that's been going on since April, like by degree. It's been going on for a long time. And it's happening interestingly, it like goes back and forth between Taurus and Pisces and Aries and Gemini. So it's kind of like flipping back and forth through these signs. But August 11th is also another one of these sextiles perfecting. We've got three of them. So this is the second part of a three-part story of a lot of like slow but constructive change. This is like intentionally changing systems and structures, having to, put some effort into that. But it possibly any changes to established systems or structures being a positive thing with a sextile here. So that was up on my radar a bit in August. So this kind of change to the existing systems and structures, it peaked in April. It's peaking again in August. And the final of these is in January of 2026. So if you feel like you're going through, I mean, I think this is just part of the larger, you know, the larger outer planet configuration that's happening. But if we're going through some kind of transformation or change, it does feel rather slow and like a big ship turning around. That's what it feels like more than I know with Uranus, we expect more sudden bursts of change, which maybe now that they're in Gemini, that'll be. But yeah, this sextile, it continues and it gets loud in August. And then we finally get to talk about the happy stuff. So we have on, I mean, I'm just going to say the August 11th, August 10th, 11th, 12th. We really get to enjoy one of the sweeter notes of the year. We have one of these every time Venus comes around, every year, or I suppose it's probably a little bit more than a year. They meet Jupiter, and that's usually a sweeter note. There's something either stabilizing going on. So let's say you're in a very difficult circumstance, and this isn't, you at a wine tasting or something with a bunch of nerds. If you're living a really difficult life, this could be some respite, something coming in to help or to stabilize. So I like to see that. At best, it can be very luxurious, very, yeah, just enjoying the senses, taste, touch, smell, sight, music, people, relationships, anything that's comforting to you. Eating Cheetos on your couch, if that's your favorite thing. Yes. So get yourself through the first part of the month and then treat yourself in the middle. Uh, so that's going to be the case. I will say though, the moon, we do have to keep our eye on the moon because the moon does have to go through Saturn and Neptune, and that is going to be on the morning of August 12th. So Tuesday morning, there's a little bit of a thing that the moon has to get through. So I don't know what that is, but then after that, then we really get to especially get directly involved with the benefics. So just get yourself through that little blip on the 12th. It's the malefic enclosure. It's a lunar malefic enclosure. It is from universal time on the 12th, from 12:30 p.m. until 4:30 p.m. So it's short. It's only 4 hours. In Central Time, that will be from 7:30 a.m. to about 11:30 a.m. Lunar malefic enclosure on the 12th. Same day as that very nice, benefic conjunction, but there is this little blip. Uh, and then we get to the 14th, which is actually one of my favorite days. This is one of my favorite things the moon does all month. We're going to have a mutual reception between Venus and the moon while the moon is in Taurus. So I think that's going to be pretty sweet. The moon is not in configuration with malefics, so that's nice. So even though this is like after that conjunction proper, Venus is now separating, but now like the moon really gets to plug into that real nice. So I almost wonder too if like the 14th, the 15th won't be a couple really nice days. Is there anything getting in the way of that? Let me check myself before I wreck myself. There's a small 2 hour on the 13th. Yeah, there's a little 12th and 13th. There's some malefic enclosure stuff. But yeah, the 14th, 15th looks nice. So with that, let me see if there's any comments or questions. Thanks for joining me, everyone. Hello, Danny. Thanks for joining. Good morning, KWOW. Good morning, Mystic. All right. I don't know. I think I'm having technical difficulties. Oh, there we go. Yeah, oddly mixed company. Mars South Node was burnout. Yeah, yeah, that's that's real. I was talking to a lot of people who were really just trying so hard to do all of the stuff they usually do during that Mars South Node conjunction over like kind of mid-July. Basically, we just got out of it. And there were so many people, yeah, they were just trying to do all their usual stuff and just struggling. And I actually had to really have a kind of come to Jesus talk with myself because I was doing that to myself and I was just feeling not great. And I was like, listen, you're an astrologer. The Mars with the South Node. What are you doing? Like, your motivation and energy aren't up there. Like, why are you fighting this and running against the wind? And sometimes you have to. Like, if you're a parent, you don't have a choice about those things. If you are, have a lot of responsibility at your job that, like there's certain things you can't just get out of because you're like, oh, the moon is on the South Node. But yeah, like I'm now at a point in my life where I have that agency. So what am I doing? You know, if you have the agency to not torture yourself, why do it? I will use that privilege while I have it. Oh, yes, Virgo risings. Uh, I end up with a lot of them around me. I don't know if it's because I got South Node in Virgo myself, in my birth chart, but Virgos are around me a lot. I have a high propensity for Virgos in my life. Ugh. Maybe it's the Pisces moon. Maybe they sense us being an odd couple. Let's see. So second half of August, what do we have? So after the nice couple days, then the moon is going to be a little bit more frenetic on the 16th and 17th, especially the 16th. Looks like much more of a busy, frenetic kind of. It could be cool, but the moon's plugging into a lot of energy, a lot of externalizing kind of busyness and potentially restlessness. So Saturday the 16th might be a busy, active day. It looks a little bit more exciting than the previous, more comfy days. On the 18th into the 19th, we have a malefic lunar enclosure that is 11 hours long. So we're going to have the moon running into this T square with Mars Saturn. So the 18th and then the 19th, not so great, or doing things that are just less comfortable. Like maybe that's the night that I'll go to the gym, try to lift heavy. And right after that, and we get the moon in a very nice place. So very roller coastery. It's like we're kind of talking about these configurations themselves, happening in their own time. So Mars, Saturn doing their dance early in the month. But we also have to remember that even after that separates, um, the moon is still kind of plugging in with all of that and giving us kind of this roller coaster effect because it's like hitting the malefics and hitting the benefics. It's like something less stable, something more stable, something extreme, something more chill. And it's just kind of like that. And some months are more kind of even keel. This month, it's a little bit less even keel that way, highs and lows. That's what it feels like in August. A benefic enclosure between so this is going to be, I'll give you the exact times. Universal time, August 19th at 10 p.m. until the following day on the 20th at 12:30 p.m. That's going to be, that'll be the evening of the 19th for Central Time, global Western time zones. So like the evening of the 19th looks nice into the 20th. And now we're getting into a part of the month. So we had a nice day. And now I want to turn our attention, before we talk about the new moon, just know that Venus is starting to enter into a T square with Chiron and Pluto. So Venus has a pretty rocky entrance into Cancer, and Venus also has kind of a rocky exit and entrance into Leo, where they have to go through some difficult vibes. So starting, I mean, I'm not going to say August 21st. Well, I mean, Chiron is in there. So let's just say, um, if Pluto wasn't there, I wouldn't give this warning. Like Chiron, because Chiron can be healing. Chiron isn't always ouchy. And especially if you're like the older you get, the more you're like trying things for a second, third, fourth time, like especially romantically, um, it can be healing. So I don't always discount things because of Chiron. That being said, a square with Chiron, and then also the square opposition with Pluto. End of August, not great dating weather. I don't love it for dating. I don't love it for beginning new connections with people. Uh, yeah, it just looks kind of funky. I don't love it. So just throwing that out there. Don't love end of August for dating. Um, but let's talk about this new moon. Do I have anything? Yeah, the sun's gonna, all kind of happens about the same time. The sun is gonna enter into Virgo. And we're going to have a new moon right away. So something that is true for most of 2025, like especially like the second half of 2025, we're having a lot of new moons at the end of signs or the beginning of signs, like the last few degrees, first few degrees, and it's plugging it in. Not all of them, but at least with some of these outer planets. Uh, For this Virgo one, it's really only Uranus, but in some subsequent lunations, a lot of them are plugged into that outer planet configuration. So this is the first one I really noticed where I'm like this, or that Leo new moon last month. That one was really supercharged. That was very plugged into Pluto, Uranus, Neptune. Now this upcoming new moon in Virgo, not quite as plugged in as the Leo new moon, but they still are with Uranus. and it's an overcoming square. So this is some kind of beginning, ending, beginning, and there's some change involved. There's some kind of disruption involved. I don't know, chicken or egg, which one comes first? Is it a beginning or ending because of a disruption? Is there a disruption because of a beginning or ending? Is what you're beginning or initiating, what you're embarking on, is it something different and new that you've never done before? Maybe it's something really novel that's beginning. Sometimes Uranus isn't disruptive, sometimes it's just new and different. Some discomfort with that, some tension with that. But what really struck me on this one is that, you know, opposite of that full moon that we just had. So the Aquarius full moon seen by the malefics, not seen by the benefics. Here, this new moon in Virgo, we got both stabilizing supportive planets looking in, and we don't have the malefics to deal with. So this one, I mean, it looks kind of more comfortable in some ways than that full moon that we just had previous. But yeah, Uranus is a huge part of it. So it's like Uranus and benefics. I don't know. There's something that even if there is disruption, there's something supportive. There's some resourcing, something stabilizing even in the midst of something that is disruptive. Now, Mercury cannot see. So the Lord of this lunation, Mercury, they are not able to see by aspect. However, Sun and Mercury are exchanging signs. Now, it's not a mutual reception because they don't have an aspect. And yet, Leo and Virgo house topics are going to be mixed together on this one pretty strongly. So, you know, as much as this new moon for like a Leo rising, for instance, as much as this is going to be about their second house of money, resourcing, needs, it's also probably going to be about them, their identity, potentially their health, appearance, spirit, mind, all those first house things. Oh, I had some Virgo risings here. If you're a Virgo rising, this is going to involve you, right? Your mind, body, spirit. It's also going to involve probably your 12th house, your internal landscapes, hidden stuff, suffering, navigation of suffering. All kinds of 12th house things I could talk about that I won't, but those are the main ones. So look in your chart, figure out what Leo house topics might be getting mixed in here. And then the aspect afterward. So after this Uranus square, then the moon is going to meet Jupiter. That'll be the first one they meet. So that'll be a nice kind of aftertaste to whatever this is. So very interesting. Last thing I guess I'll say, so thinking about the decans, thinking about like this first part of Virgo and like what Austin Coppock talks about with the decans. I remember them talking a lot about processes and having a process of some kind. So maybe there's some process that's new or some change to it or disruption to it, or the process itself is something that is like a solution that's disruptive in some way. Because remember, sometimes solutions are disruptive. Okay. Virgo new moon on the 23rd. Um, there's a pretty sweet benefic enclosure of the moon on the 24th. So then the moon is going to be just hugged between the rays of these two. So the 24th looks pretty nice. And 25th looks less nice. Uh, we got a malefic enclosure of the moon for about 23 hours, and that is, yeah, it's pretty much all day the 25th. And then the more globally east you get, more into the 26th with difficult day. This is the same day that Venus enters into Leo. And completing that opposition with Pluto over the next couple days. Now, the 27th is a mind your own business day. The 26th, 27th kind of Look like a mind your own business day to me. We've got the moon that's really plugging into the malefics, Chiron, Venus, Pluto, kind of all of it. I'm very happy that we have a Virgo sun at this point. Virgo sun is really, I think, that the last week of August is going to be kind of holding down the fort in terms of being rational and practical. If there's a lot of feelings or ideas or passions or thoughts going on, good old practical Virgo sun coming in saying, yeah, but if this, then that. And if we don't do that, then we'll do this. And if that doesn't work, then we'll do this. It's very practical, very good in a crisis. If there are any, I don't expect crises. Just don't go dating. Uh, Take care of yourself this week. Do exfoliation, you know. On the 26th, Mercury leaves their post-retrograde shadow. On the 27th, by 1 a.m. Central Time, on the 27th, Venus clears Pluto. So then, yeah, 27th, mind your own business, but then 28th and beyond looks a bit better. Yeah. Yep. And then the last thing for the month, we leave out the month of August with Mars running into Jupiter. Jupiter's overcoming Mars. So whatever Mars wants to do that's misbehaving, Jupiter is going to quash it, I think, for the most part, or have some kind of helpful response. But this is just very invigorating, enlivening, very energetic in a lot of ways when you get this planet of optimism, expansion, growth, sending those rays of kind of encouragement, enthusiasm down to our planet of effort and action. So Mars is like, hey, I would like to do some things. And Jupiter is like, yeah, buddy. Yeah, what do you have the right tools? Maybe challenging steel manning Mars to be like, do you have the right words? Do you have the right things for that? But I support you and go forth and prosper. Um, so it can be really constructive, a really constructive energy if we can channel it in some kind of way. I would say, just watch out end of month. Maybe last thing with that is, on the other hand, we can get a little battle happy and a little eager to get into verbal fisticuffs. So just be aware too that, especially, we want to be sustainable as possible in our battles because these are long ones. But Mars might want to do a battle, and in some cases, Jupiter might be like, yes, go do a battle, and then they do. So just be, pick your battles. It's kind of pick your battles energy, I would say. Choose your battles or choose the timing or how you do them, with a little bit more care in Libra. And that should fulfill the requirement, as T. Susan Chang says. I've been listening to so much Fortune's Wheelhouse lately. I've been getting into, I've been doing tarot for years. I've been doing it, mostly for myself and friends for years. But I'm really getting into more like methodical, intentional study. So I've been binging T. Susan Chang and Mel Moline for like the last 2 months. I love them so much. Highly recommend. All right. Any last questions? Last call? Any things, dates, times you want me to look at, comment on that I did not? Okay. And is there anything that I missed that I wish that I would have said? I don't think so. What's going on next month? Next month we got eclipses. 2 months from now we got eclipses. Yeah, so that'll be the big thing for September. Um, we'll be talking about eclipses then, but yeah, I think the most exciting parts of August are in the middle and the beginning. Uh, Final answer. Okay, thank you everyone. Again, www.aligninglightastrology.com. That's my website. You can find all of my booking information, my services. I am doing birth chart readings, forecasting readings. When people look at the year ahead, we can do postmortem retroactive analysis of things that have already happened. I help people with tutoring and mentoring as well. If you're a student of astrology, especially Hellenistic astrology, that's kind of my area of expertise. I'm happy to go over techniques, examples. You can bounce your delineations off me. I don't mind if people bring in their own birth chart to work with, of course, in mentoring sessions. I just get more into teaching mode instead of bedside manner mode. So that's some stuff that I do. Uh, oh, and elections, electional astrology. So electional astrology is when you pick a good date and time to do something. So you have better chances of success. And so usually, especially with like big things, like starting a business, having a certain type of meeting, handing in an application for something, applying for a job, all of those things are things that we can elect. Um, Hit me up, send me an email. I have those services on my website as well. If you have any questions, you know where to find me. Sliding scale exists. I think that's all my stuff. I think wow, thank you so much, Kay. Wow, I appreciate that. Very generous. I always appreciate tips, of course, but I do have a little donate button on my website as well. But you can always just get a reading, book a reading, even under my sliding scale. All of that helps me, and I love doing this work. So, thank you so much, everyone, for your time and your attention. There will be timestamps. Give me about 48 to 72 hours to get some timestamps up. I know that I say a lot of things. It's helpful. And yeah, just good luck in August. Best of luck. Take care of yourselves and each other that first week. Extra good. Get our buns. Let's get our buns to the 12th and the 13th. And I think my favorite days were like, yeah, that 16th. That looked like a nice day. Those Taurus moon days. Yeah, those were nice. I'm looking forward to those. All right, good luck, everybody. Till next time. Oh, 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 see, this happens. It's like when I'm on the phone with my mom. And then she's like, hold on, there's one more thing. I just saw a comment. Someone's asking, how's August 30th for someone's solar return? Oh, goodness. I would have to see your whole chart. I would have to see your whole chart. Uh, it really like, I know people look at solar returns by themselves, and I do that too. But first and foremost, look at the solar return chart on top of the birth chart, on top of the root chart. Because I want to see in your chart, based on your rising sign, where is that ascendant degree of the solar return falling? What house is that in for you? And then where is the solar return moon falling? What house is that in for you? Because then those are going to be, some focuses for the year. There's so many things. So I can't give you a good answer right off of the bat, but I can tell you to look at those things. Get a session with me. I got a sliding scale if you need it. All right. But also, I don't necessarily do personal questions for my Q&A. I try not to comment too much on personal charts during my Q&A, but I do have a monthly Q&A as well. If you want to come and we can talk about how to read solar return charts, I can teach you how to fish so you can do it for yourself. And my next one of that, actually, it's good that we're talking about this. The Thursday, the 14th, August 14th at 7 p.m. Central Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time is my next question and response time. So show up there. We'll talk about solar returns. All right, take care, everybody. Thank you.